Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're breaking down a really fascinating financial experiment straight from our source material. Imagine, for a second, that you take $500,000, drop it all into a single ETF, and just walk away for 5 years. The specific fund you pick will completely dictate whether you come back to a massive account balance, a steady, life-changing paycheck, or maybe a giant number on a screen that somehow changes absolutely nothing about your actual daily life. It's one starting amount, but it leads to 3 entirely different lives.
So we really have to ask the core question of this explainer. What does $500,000 actually do for you? As we run this $500,000 through 5 different ETFs over the exact same 5-year period, we're going to see exactly what the account looks like at the very end and exactly what each ETF pays out along the way. Because, as you'll see, the outcome depends entirely on where that money is placed.
Okay, let's dive into this. $500,000. That is our firm's starting point. It's the number our subject, let's call him John, is working with, and it's the absolute anchor for this entire experiment. No additional money is added. We're just watching this initial chunk of capital go to work.
Section 1. The default. S&P 500 VOO. Now, when you ask people where to put $500,000, VOO is pretty much the default answer, right? You just own the 500 biggest U.S. companies with practically zero fees. And the results? By year 5, assuming all dividends are reinvested, John's balance is sitting at a massive $961,797. He has literally almost doubled his money just by holding. But then he checks the income column. In year 5, his dividends total about $6,900 for the year, which breaks down to roughly $575 a month. Now, $575 a month on an account worth nearly $1 million, that is the glaring flaw here. That doesn't change John's daily life at all. The fund is designed purely to grow, not to pay you.
So the crucial point is, if VOO grows the account but barely pays out, where does the income piece actually come from? Well, to find it, our source material shows you often have to look outside the US. International companies just behave differently. They tend to pay way more of their profits out as dividends rather than just endlessly reinvesting them into the share price.
Section 2. Chasing the Dividends, VXUS and SCHD.
Let's look at Vanguard's Total International Stock ETF first, VXUS. This holds over 8,500 public companies outside the US. Over 5 years, the balance ends up at $756,885. Now, that ending number is over $200,000 lower than where VOO finished. But look at the income. By year 5, VXUS is paying out about $1,626 a month. So it solves the income problem, paying nearly 3 times as much as VOO. But the harsh reality is, it cost John over $200,000 in overall account growth to get there.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how our next fund, Schwab's U.S. Dividend Equity ETF, or SCHD, acts as a sort of bridge. Instead of just grabbing a random basket of dividend stocks, it strictly screens its holdings. To even get in, a company must have 10 solid years of dividend payments, incredibly strong cash flow, and consistent dividend growth. Because of these strict rules, it only holds about 100 companies that are absolutely built to pay you well and to grow what they pay over time.
And here is exactly what that screening achieves. We kind of call this the Goldilocks moment. By year 5, SCHD's balance lands at $896,130. I mean, that is almost catching up to the pure growth of VOO. But the monthly income is where it really shines, $2,401 every single month. This is the very first fund that doesn't force John to give something massive up. He gets near market growth while pulling in a highly respectable $2,400 a month.
Section 3. Pushing to the extremes, JPI versus VGT. So what happens when an ETF just stops trying to balance things and goes completely all in on one extreme metric? Let's start with the extreme income side. JP Morgan's Equity Premium Income ETF, or JPII. It's built on a totally different idea. It holds large U.S. companies, but on top of that, it sells options on those holdings every single month. Each option it sells brings in cash premium from other investors. That cash is then pooled with regular dividends and paid directly out to shareholders. It completely prioritizes massive yield over any real share price appreciation.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of that strategy. It's honestly jaw-dropping. By year 5, JPI is paying John a staggering $5,350 every single month. That is literally more than a lot of full-time jobs pay.
The entire fund is built around one single mission, turning that $500,000 into a massive, generous monthly paycheck.
But of course, there is a harsh trade-off here. While that income is massive, the account balance by year 5 only grew to roughly $805,000. When you compare that to VOO's $961,000, John essentially sacrificed over $156,000 of pure account growth just to secure that incredible monthly income. Everything else took a total backseat to the payout.
Okay, so what if John does the exact opposite? What if he chases pure, unadulterated growth? Enter VGT, the Vanguard Information Technology Index Fund. It is over 99% U.S. tech companies, your Apples, Microsofts, and NVIDIAs. Absolutely zero diversification. It's a pure bet on the long arc of U.S. technology. And man, the timeline growth is explosive. Year 1 clears $613,000. Year 3 blasts past $923,000. And by year 5, the account surges to an astonishing $1,387,984. It nearly triples his money.
But remember the trade-off we've been tracking? Well, here it is at its absolute most extreme. Despite having nearly $1.4 million in the account by year 5, the monthly dividend from VGT is a shocking $167. Tech companies famously reinvest their cash into research and new products, not into paying you. So the bigger VGT gets, the less it practically pays out. That incredible scale completely crushes the yield.
Section 4. The Ultimate Blended Portfolio.
Let's move to and see how this builds into something even better. We've seen 5 completely different versions of what $500,000 can do, but not a single one gave John everything he wanted on its own. So, instead of choosing just a single path, John splits the money based on what each fund is actually good at. As our source breaks down, he allocates 30% into JPI, another 30% into SCHD, 20% into VXUS, 10% into VOO, and the final 10% into VGT.
Think of this as a purpose-built machine where no single fund is doing the entire job. They all have their own superpowers. JPI is the heavy-lifting income engine. SCHD provides growing yield at a great scale. VXUS offers that global diversification, so he isn't totally reliant on the US. VO provides steady, compounding growth in the background. And VGT, that's the pure tech upside, kept small enough so it doesn't wreck the portfolio if tech crashes, but large enough to inject some real serious growth.
And the final result of this blend is just remarkable. By year 5, the account balance sits at a very healthy $877,540, and the monthly income runs right alongside it, paying out $2,602 a month. So John successfully achieves a 75% growth on his overall account over 5 years, while simultaneously earning the equivalent of a pretty nice part-time salary in monthly dividends.
Visually, this really proves the power of compromise. Look at this. The blended portfolio at $877,000 doesn't quite catch the extreme $1.38 million high of the pure tech fund, VGT. But, importantly, it completely avoids the growth stagnation of the pure income fund, JPI. It basically secures that middle path beautifully.
And looking at the income side, it's the exact same logic. The blend's $2,602 doesn't beat JPI's massive $5,350 paycheck. We know that. But it absolutely rescues John from being stranded with VGT's paltry $16 a month. It secures robust, real-world income while still allowing the underlying capital to appreciate significantly.
Which brings us to an absolutely crucial takeaway from our source material, perfectly summarizing the philosophy of this entire explainer. The portfolio isn't trying to win at any one race, it's trying to never lose all of them at the same time. When tech runs hot, VGT pulls. When option income is strong, JPI does the heavy lifting. And underneath it all, the S&P 500 just steadily, quietly compounds.
So, I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on as you review your own allocations. Are you placing a massive bet, trying to win a single, highly specific race? Or is your portfolio actually built with the resilience to ensure you never lose? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this deeper look gives you a powerful new perspective on exactly how to put your money to work.